It's the International Soccer Preview, and we are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 28, looking at the groups and teams of the 2024 Copa America. This episode is looking at the players of Jamaica. Here we go! Hello and welcome again to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin, and we continue Series 28 on the groups and players of the 2024 Copa America. This episode covers Jamaica's players, and it's in fact part 2 of the Players Media Cast. Here we look at the selections. In part 1, we made a list of the candidates and introduced them and their likelihood of making the squad. And there is a link to that, to part 1 in the show notes. Part 2 here will be divided into 3 sections. In section 1, we'll take a quick look at their preliminary squad and their warm-up games. In section 2, the main part of the media cast, we look over the list we compiled in part 1 to see who made it and who didn't. And in section 3, we summarize surprises in the selections and review injuries. Let's begin then and jump into section 1, a short section on the preliminary squad and their warm-up games. So Jamaica did not produce a preliminary squad. Actually, they released a final squad on June 12th. And so no preliminary squad here. However, that final 26-man squad was reduced when one player withdrew, which we'll talk about later. So that leaves Jamaica just with a 25-man final squad. They didn't replace that player. Okay, for the warm-up games, we did have 2 warm-up games for Jamaica. And they were not really warm-up games. They were actually World Cup qualifiers against Dominican Republic on June 5th and Dominica on June 8th. Dominican Republic is quite a bit stronger than Dominica. I expected a bit, maybe more of a B team for Dominica, but it was the last game before the Cup here, so maybe they were trying out their squad. It wasn't really a B team, although they did use different players in each game, as we will see. So we will keep an eye on those. We don't care about the results there. We're just interested in the lineup, but Jamaica did win both. Okay, let's move on then and to section 2, the main part of the media cast, and let's see who made it and who didn't. So we have manager Heimer Hallgrimsson, who was selected for the squad effectively in that he was not dismissed or anything before the Cup. We can move on to goalkeepers and look at the definite candidate, Jamali Waite. He was selected. Likely candidate, Captain Andre Blake, was a bit of an injury concern. We'll talk about that more later, but he was selected. We had 2 possible candidates in Konaya Boyce-Clark and Shakan Davis, and both of them were selected. So Jamaica bringing 4 goalkeepers to the Cup here. And I suspect that is because of Andre Blake's potential injury, suggesting perhaps that he is not fully recovered and that bringing the 4th keeper is covering his potential absence. We had 2 possible but unlikely candidates, Kimar Foster and Amal Knight, and neither of those were selected. All right, that is goalkeepers. Let's move on to defense and specifically central defense. We have a definite candidate in Deschamps Bernard, who was selected, and so was definite candidate Damien Lowe. Likely candidate Michael Hector, also selected for the squad. And we had 2 possible candidates, Richard King and Ethan Pinnock. Ethan Pinnock was an injury concern. Richard King was selected for the squad, and Ethan Pinnock, despite that injury concern, was selected as well. So 5 central defenders there are possible but unlikely. Kyle Ming was not selected there. On to left backs, and we have Greg Lee as a definite candidate, and he was selected. Amari Bell, another player who came in with an injury concern, but was selected. So they are selecting all of these guys. We wonder if they're really fit to play there. That's it for left back. So 2 left backs, and on the right, the likely candidate Dexter Limbakisa was selected, and so was possible candidate. Possible candidate Tavon Gray was not selected there, and nor was possible but unlikely candidate Javane Brown. Instead, we have a new player added to the list here. Actually, not a new player for Jamaica. It's Wes Harding, but we hadn't covered him in part 1 because he was seemingly off the squad, having last appeared in September of 2021. Wes Harding has had a rough time with Jamaica. He's English born and 28 years old now, just 2 caps for the national team since 2021, and he plays for Millwall in England. He was with Birmingham in England for 5 years, as well as with their youth club. And for the 2021 Gold Cup and the 2023 Gold Cup, he was on the preliminary squad, but not making the final cut. Finally, he comes out of the blue here and is suddenly named to this squad. So Wes Harding effectively taking Tavon Gray's position there. So 2 right backs and 2 left backs. On we go to defensive midfielders, and we have a definite candidate in Joel Latibaudiere, and he is selected for the squad. Also, we have a possible candidate, Casey Palmer, selected, and the other possible candidate, Kevon Lambert. Both of those selected for the squad. However, our possible but unlikely Jason Anglin did not make it. Central midfielders, no definite candidates there, but we had a likely candidate. No, I put him in the likely category, but he should be in the possible category, Karoy Anderson, but he was selected anyway. And however, possible but unlikely John Russell and Demario Phillips, and neither of those selected for the squad. Upfield we go. We did have some players coded as left midfielders. We generally move them around, but we do have 2 possible but unlikely, Deshane Beckford and Brandon Cover, and neither of those selected for the squad. We had a special category we created for versatile attacking midfielder, and that was Leon Bailey. We created that because he moved around so much. And Leon Bailey was selected for the final squad, but he had kind of a disagreement with the Jamaican FA, and so was not selected, or sorry, was the player who withdrew from the final squad. So we're going to put him in a kind of a purpley pink color there to indicate that Leon Bailey withdrawing from the squad there. Over to the left attacking side, we have a definite candidate, Damari Gray, but yet another player who came in with an injury concern and yet was selected. So Damari Gray is part of the squad. Possible candidate Ronaldo Cephas, also named to the squad, and a new candidate here too in Alexis Marshall. So Alexis Marshall, again, didn't make our radar because he had been off the team for 2 years. Actually has a bit of a long history with the team. So I'll introduce him since he was selected. Alexis Marshall is 26 years old with 11 caps and no goals for Jamaica since 2017. And in fact, he was selected for the preliminary squad as far back as the 2017 Gold Cup and also for the 2019 Gold Cup. on the preliminary squad. Not though selected even for the preliminary squad for the 2021 or 2023 Cups, and then came back in out of the blue after a 2-year absence in March of 2024 and started one of their games and subbed in for one and was on the bench for one. So Alex Marshall surprisingly making the squad there, and one of 3 left attackers. Okay, over to the right side, we have Bobby De Cordova-Reid as a definite candidate, and he was selected. And Kahim Dixon was a possible candidate here. He also was selected. Central attackers, Daniel Johnson, probably for me the biggest surprise. We had him as a definite candidate and he was not selected. So more on that a little later, but surprise there. We had 2 possible but unlikely candidates, Corey Burke and Tyrek McGee, neither of those making it either. Over to or up to forwards, we had no secondary strikers, so we go directly to centre forwards. We had a definite candidate in Shamar Nicholson there. Mikel Antonio we had as a possible candidate. Doesn't always come for games, so that was part of our thinking. We weren't sure if he would play this tournament, having played in the 2023 Gold Cup last summer, but Mikel Antonio is here. He is selected. The other possible candidate, Romario Williams, not selected, and nor were either of our possible candidates Jamal Lowe or Trevante Stewart. So there we have it. Those are the 25 candidates, and we'll look into section 3 now for a review. So we'll begin with notable non-selections, and actually I can't put Leon Bailey in this section because he was selected, so we're going to create a separate section for him below called Declined Invitations. And Leon Bailey, whatever his problem with the FA was, I read a couple of articles, and some of them blamed Bailey, some of them blamed the FA, some blamed both, which is probably closer to the truth. He broke a curfew in November. I'm actually not sure what his complaint with them is specifically, but anyway, whatever the reason, he declined the invitation and sadly is not going to be here. For me, the other really notable non-selection was Daniel Johnson, the attacking midfielder who we had as a definite candidate. Honestly, I can't imagine why he wasn't recalled to replace Leon Bailey. They seem to have space on the squad, bringing 4 goalkeepers, and really feels like a big snub here for Daniel Johnson, and I'm baffled by the decision. We also have a couple of veterans off the squad who were part of the Gold Cup and many tournaments before. So not surprises here, but notable non-selection. Kemar Lawrence has 77 caps for the national team, and Adrian Mariappa with 72 caps for the national team. And Devon Williams, not so much... No, I'm not going to put him on the list. It's not even a surprise. And okay, let's declined invitation, Leon Bailey. Surprise inclusions, John Bell, the central defender, selected ahead of others. And for us, he was seemingly off the squad. We talked about that earlier on. New players, we have 2 of them, Wes Harding and Alex Marshall, and new only in the sense that they weren't on our radar, having not played for the team for a while before suddenly being selected at the end. So Wes Harding, a right back, and Alex Marshall, a left winger. Now we have a lot to update on injuries for Jamaica, because a lot of players came in with injuries concerns, veterans. It looked quite bad for Jamaica with some big names out, and yet all of them were selected, and yet all of them are still tagged as injury concerns. So rather than say recovered from injury, which we would presume by the fact that they were selected, I'm going to say that they're injury doubts coming into the Cup. For example, it may be that Andre Blake was selected just for his leadership, given that they brought 4 goalkeepers, I kind of suspected. But bringing the captain along. He had been out with a knee injury since early May and is an unknown return date, or that's what his tag said. So it could well be that he's still carrying that injury, and that could be true of all of them. So let's go through them. Ethan Pinnock, the central defender, he was out with an ankle injury and an unknown return date. He had been out with the same injury, the knee injury, for 7 weeks from mid-February to early April. Then he returned to play for his club until the end of the season. And this is all in part 1. All of these players were known in part 1. For Pinnock, though, the wording of the injury changed on the source that I used, the main source at least, changed from ankle injury to injury of the ankle. And we don't know if that's significant. It could be a recurrence of the original injury, and maybe they're using different words to show that it's not exactly the same injury. Anyway, Ethan Pinnock selected, but again, a bit of a doubt. Next, we have Joel Latibeaudiere. He's coded as a central defender, but he's been playing as a defensive midfielder. And he is out with a calf. Well, his injury tag says out with a calf muscle tear. He was out for the last game of the season with his club on May 5th, and the tag has an unknown return date. And yet here he is back again, hopefully fit, because a very important defensive midfielder for them. And finally, Demarai Gray, same situation, out with a shoulder injury and an unknown return date. That tag still on his name after the squad was selected. So I don't know whether they're kind of bringing these players and hoping they'll recover in time, maybe to play the later games, or bringing them for leadership, as I suspect with Andre Blake. We'll just have to wait to the tournament to see. Otherwise, those 4 injuries, only to their biggest players. But I thought we had one more. I thought Amari Bell was also, so I'm going to just find him here and put him on the list too. Amari Bell, so another big player. These are all big players here. Amari Bell out with a hamstring injury since mid-March and an unknown return date, and he had not been selected before matches prior to the injury, but still tagged as injured. So he also was brought to the squad. So there we go. Well, I really have to see what they do when they get there, but that is Jamaica for you. They're 25 squad members, and I hope our media cast is going to help you enjoy watching Jamaica, being more familiar with the players. We would like to thank Paul Udin and Pixabay for the wonderful background music accompanying this media cast. The piece is called Victory Epic Music.